All right, and welcome back to the second segment of At the Helm podcast with your host, Justin Helms, episode 6. Back with my dad again. And I'm doing a welcome back, even though this is the first part that we're
back.
recording. Yeah, exactly. He's on. What's his name? Dude from Texas, the quarterback. We're back.
Oh, yeah. I can't remember the name.
I'm
but
forgetting
yeah,
his name right now. Sam Ellinger?
Yeah,
Sam
I think
Ellinger.
that was him. Yeah,
But
yeah.
we're back, and I'm saying that, but this is really the second segment of this episode. I'm just recording it first, and then I'm going to record the what did we learn in our intro in the first part. But I wanted to knock this out because I had to get this man on here. And the first thing we're going to do for this part of it was kind of like a week review of what happened against Texas A&M. We're going to talk mostly Alabama and that game being on College Game Day. Really the biggest game of this weekend, honestly, in my opinion, at least. And we're going to talk about that. And then right after, we're going to go and talk about what we think is going to happen versus Tennessee, a kind of preview or what needs to happen for each team to win. And then we're going to give our rankings based off of what happened in last week. So kind of like our week 7 rankings. I think this is week 7.
Yeah, this will be week 7.
So, yeah.
Yep.
We'll go straight into it. We'll get into A&M first. So I wanted to ask you, what were the biggest issues you saw versus A&M for Alabama?
Right.
Of course. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, I'm saying, well, I guess I'll start off with, and I know as an Alabama fan, you fans, you know about this, but number one, the biggest issue for me was the offensive coordinator, Bill O'Brien. I just don't think you had a quarterback who's doing his first start. The kid is already nervous, and then you don't put him in a position where he can be successful. I'm saying everybody knows that Jalen Milroe's strong points are not his throwing game
at all.
Right? They're not his throwing game. And Bill O'Brien, it seems like his playbook was limited to just either run Jahmyr Gibbs, which was successful for the most part, running Jahmyr Gibbs. But then when he tried to go for the deep ball, when he would take Jalen Milroe back for a passing play, he would try to go for the deep ball. That's not Jalen Milroe's strong point. So to me, the biggest issue with that game was just Bill O'Brien. And I don't know how you fix that in a matter of weeks before you get to Tennessee, because Bill O'Brien is Bill O'Brien. We've seen him do the same thing for the past couple of years. So there was no intermediate game. There is no creativity to his play calling or anything like that. So to me, that was the number one thing going on with the whole Alabama game and why we had issues. Then I would have to say number 2, Jalen Milroe himself. Jalen Milroe being there. He came in. You could tell he was playing with a lot of anxiety. His pocket awareness is not really there yet. So when the pocket starts to break down, he doesn't have that internal clock that says, okay, go ahead and take off. Which that's his strong point, is his legs. So he doesn't.
That's what led to one of the fumbles.
Right, exactly. I think he came in trying to prove to the world that he can be a passing quarterback. He's heard all the critics. He's heard all the critics out there. So he came into this game.
Even Saban came out and said multiple times he wants Milroe to get better at passing. Exactly. That's the biggest thing.
Exactly. So I think he was trying to prove to the world that he could do that. So he didn't realize when the pocket is starting to break down, go ahead and get what you can with your legs.
Or throw it away.
Right. Or throw it away. Throw it away. Yeah. Get what you can with your legs, number one. Number 2, if you can't get anything, throw the ball away. Don't take a sack or, a fumble or something like that. So those are the 2 biggest things for me. And then although, I'll mention the third thing quickly. Although the secondary and the defense overall played well, I think there are still some weaknesses around the secondary. I would say statistically, they played well, but in certain big plays, that's where you would see some breakdown, some pass interference,
especially on that last drive.
Exactly.
That last drive that A&M had, they really had a lot go their way with a quarterback in Haynes King, who we've seen struggle all season. Right. So it's hard for us to sit here and watch that and then come back and be like, oh, the secondary played great. Yes, it played great full game-wise, but there are for certain instances where you saw in big moments that led to that game being as close as it did.
Exactly. Yeah. So that was it in terms of what I learned from Alabama during that Texas A&M games. And I did mention also just penalties. I'm saying they need to figure out how to, again, same as talking about secondary and them having breakdowns when it came to key plays. Same with the penalties. They just came at the worst time. I'm saying we were 6 penalties, 73 yards, and those 73 yards just came at the worst possible time for Alabama during the course of the game.
Yeah, and I agree. This is, and you basically hit everything. I tweeted right after the game. What I said was, actually, this was during the last drive because I thought that Alabama was going to lose. Actually, right. I tweeted this. I said this game is on Bill O'Brien, Jalen Milroe, and Will Reichard. And reason because Will Reichard, of course, he missed 2 field goals. That's completely uncharacteristic over what we've seen from Will Reichard during his Alabama career. He's probably been one of the most solid kickers we've had in a decade plus, which is crazy to say if you've seen all the kickers we had from Bulovis to Andy Griffith to Jeremy Shelley. It's annoying. But the second thing I was talking about is Jalen Milroe, a great player, and I want to see him do well. But as of right now, like you said, he can't pass the ball anything past really 10 yards, honestly.
Right. Yeah.
Even then, there was some shaky plays when he was throwing 10 yards. So and I'll get to Bill O'Brien's part, but there is sections like that one play that we talked about where Milroe fumbled. Dude runs right past his face. You have an open lane. There's no receivers down the field. And so instead of taking off and running when you see a completely open lane open up and there's people flying across your face and behind your back or throwing the ball away, you just stand there for longer like our receivers are going to get open. We've talked about it before on this podcast. Our receivers, the Alabama receivers are not great. So it's not like you can sit and wait for a guy to get open because they're not going to.
Right.
They're not going to. If they get off that first break and they've ran their full route and they're not open then, and you see an open lane to run, it's time to run. You like use your strength. That's what wins you games, and it ended up, I guess, winning us the game then. But there were a lot of instances where he waited too long and he fumbled and stuff like that, where the ball should have been gone. Like you shouldn't have been there.
And I think Milroe he's at a point in his career where he's not a 3-read type of quarterback.
Nope.
You know, I've read that when Jalen Hurts was coming along, Lane Kiffin changed it when he first got there. So Jalen Hurts was just a 1-read guy. And if he didn't see that 1 read, then it was time to go. Right? So I think they need to employ a similar tactic with Jalen Milroe, where he's totally not ready to go through 3 progressions. He's
not Bryce.
And then go from there. Right. So you just have to develop a game plan, to me, where he can get 1 read in, and if that is not there, then you have to go.
You gotta go.
And that is on Bill O'Brien.
Yeah. And then even on some of the plays that we saw where we had open receivers like Latu, there was 2 passes to Latu that were just off.
Right.
That they were too high, too low, it was too far. And it seemed like he was really liking Latu, which absolutely blows my mind because he has not done anything at all this season. So I don't know what he was seeing in Latu that made him want to make that his 1 read.
Right.
But like you said, he's not a multiple read guy. He can't do that right now. Right. And this is what I said multiple times during this game. This moment is too big for him.
It is.
This A&M game that has been hyped up all season long, from Saban saying things in the offseason all the way leading up until the game, even past the first few drives, where even when Alabama started looking pretty solid in those first few drives and everything like that, it still was too much for him. And you can almost see it on his face when you watch him. His eyes just huge the whole game. He's just looking lost. I'm like, I kept saying, I think things are just moving too fast for him. He doesn't know what's going on right now. It's too much.
And again, I go back to Bill O'Brien because he should recognize that for Jalen Milroe and try to put him in more comfortable positions. I'm saying when he sees that going on, because Jalen Milroe was rattled, and especially after that first fumble or so, you could see it all in his eyes that he was just playing with a lot of anxiety. He was nervous, what have you. But yet, Bill O'Brien, when he did go back for a pass, was trying to throw it down the field for the deep ball. I'm saying we're still trying to get that together with Bryce and the chemistry between Bryce and the other receivers. Now you put Jalen Milroe in that position where he's trying to chunk it downfield. Put him in short to intermediate game and go from there.
And now I'll get to my last part. What I said is number 1. Like you said, I agree. Bill O'Brien has to change. And I hope to God Saban puts him on that field. Saban has to put him on that field. I don't know if we all saw the moment in that game where It was obviously run situation. We get down to the goal line, and then all of a sudden we're passing. And then you see the first thing they cut to Saban. I'm not gonna say it because we all saw the real words that come out of his mouth. Run the effing ball. Like you can see him scream it through his headset. And I know Bill O'Brien's like this right now because he's literally just hearing Saban scream. And it's just it's insane that, to me, the biggest problem with Bill O'Brien is not the fact that he has no creativity in play calling, not the fact that he isn't making anything better in terms of helping out Bryce Young or helping out Jalen Milroe or the O-line that struggles at points. To me, the worst thing about Bill O'Brien is his awareness, his game awareness in terms of situations of when we should run, when they should pass, what type of run or pass should be going on, or what would be perfect based off of what we've seen the defense give us and what things are open. He has no type of awareness. I don't know what he's looking at in defenses after those first few drives, after those scripted plays we talk about, when they're that time where it's time to make adjustments of, okay, the defense gave us this is what we're going to do to combat that. He's not playing that chess game with other coordinators. He has zero awareness. He just keeps doing the same thing over and over, thinking it's going to work because we have talent of Alabama, and it's not going to. Like it's.
And then I think the other thing that it proves, like with Jalen Milroe being in that game, it proves that Bryce has covered up a lot of Bill O'Brien's mistakes and a lot of his deficiencies in terms of just being a play caller. Because you're right, Bill O'Brien, his play calling is very vanilla, it's very basic. It doesn't have any flow to it. A lot of times it doesn't make any sense. You're down on the goal line. You're down on the goal line, 1st and goal at the 3, and he goes back for a pass. And then you could be in a 3rd and long situation, and then he gives it to a running back to run up the middle. So it doesn't make sense a lot of times. He didn't get them comfortable with screen passes, pop plays, pop passes, or just things like that. But
that's what I said is he has to figure out, because I complained about this after the Arkansas game, and I think I said this on our last show when I had Asa. Alabama's offense right now is 2 things. Run the ball or throw it past 10, 15 yards. There is no intermediate short pass game. The pass game that we had, that when it was Tua, when it was Mac Jones, even to an extent when it was Jalen Hurts, it's gone. Those guys that Judy, Ruggs, Smith, Waddle, there was a lot of deep passes to them, and there was a lot of intermediate passes to them. But the thing that made them the best is the fact that you could get them the ball 5 yards, and it doesn't matter. They're gone. They're better than your DBs. They're able to run after the catch because they have that talent. Alabama's receivers have absolutely shown they do not have the talent to get open before the catch. Now, after the catch, we don't know because we haven't even seen what it looks like. We have no idea. We have no clue. The only players we've seen after the catch look solid because they've given them a few chances at those looks. Isaiah Bond, Kobe Prentice, JoJo Earl on a couple plays.
In that last game.
Exactly. So it's just like, I don't know what you can see from Alabama's receivers that makes you think you can run all these 10 and 15-yard routes with a quarterback that already can't throw it deep and then think it's going to work out. It's just, I'm not.
I agree.
I don't know what's being looked at. And that's the biggest thing to me is and that goes back to the situational awareness. He has no awareness of what this team can and can't do. It's like almost he's not there in practice. Like, I don't know what he's seeing. Maybe the practice team is giving him a terrible look. Like, I don't know what he's seeing that makes him think that, oh yeah, this is the game plan for this week. Like a blind man could understand it if they were sitting at home listening to Eli Gold. Like, it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. So yeah, that was basically all I had for A&M and what happened for that.
Yeah, that's all I had. For A&M also.
Yeah. So, and of course there were turnovers, but turnovers, I feel like a lot of those turnovers were in situations that we shouldn't have been in. If it wasn't for
and then
how the game was called.
The turnovers also just goes back to what I was saying about just Jalen Milroe, because a lot of them were just Jalen Milroe. I think was the problem with that, because he was just carrying the ball like a loaf of bread. He didn't protect the ball once he started to try to scramble. He just had it like this.
Loops all around. Yes, running like Vic. So my second question is, we all saw Will Reichard missed 2 field goals. One of them
Right.
that was kind of a chip shot. One of them was a little bit further back, but not out of
Yeah.
range of what we've seen Will Reichard do. So,
Right.
are you worried about Reichard? Do you think that this is something that could continue? Do you think his confidence is shot? Maybe.
I don't know. Of course, that's the concern. The concern is just that his confidence, shot, and then he starts to kind of, that feeds on itself.
Exactly.
But hopefully, he's not at that point. At this stage of the game, I would say I'm not yet worried about Will Reichard.
One question, panicker piece.
Yeah. Right. It's peace for me because, if you look at what he's done over the past couple of years, he's solid. I'm saying it. And as you were stating earlier, Will is the best kicker we've had in some years.
Time.
Yeah, we haven't had this in a while. So, yeah, I would say he was due to have a bad game. Now, I don't want to see it again.
Not at all.
I don't want to see it again, but he was due to have a bad game. It's hard to stay perfect all the time. Now, if he goes out in Tennessee and he still looks shaky, you see that look on his face, that type of thing, then I would worry. But just based on the Texas A&M game, I'm not ready yet to say that I'm worried about Will.
In this season, I wanted to give you all a stat. Those 2 field goals he missed, those were the first field goals he has missed so far this season that were under 50 yards. The only other one he missed was a 50-yard plus. That was against Arkansas. In this game, he missed one that was 40 to 49, and then another one that was in that 30-yard range. So, if I'm giving a panicker piece, I have to say piece too. I don't think it will get too bad. I don't see this being a big hindrance in the future just because of what you said. We've never seen him struggle like this before, and I don't expect it to be something starting now. Versus the other kickers we've saw with Alabama, they've struggled from start to end.
Yeah, there were too many inconsistencies with the other kickers. I'm saying there were inconsistencies the whole time.
Their whole career.
Right.
So it's hard for me to base off of what we've seen from the other kickers at Alabama where their whole career is a struggle versus Will Reichard having this one game as a struggle. It's hard for me to be like, oh yeah, it's going to be a problem in the future. So knock on wood, of course. I hope to God it is not something that is the issue, especially with this game coming up against Tennessee this weekend. But I do think that Will Reichard is okay, and we can be chill on him for at the moment. And I don't apologize to him, but there was a guy on Twitter who came in here talking about, you see all these players do this, you see these players play bad and this, and then you blame it on a kicker. I'm not blaming it on the kicker because I told y'all what I tweeted. It was on Bill O'Brien, Jalen Millro, and Will Reichard. So that guy came in commenting back on that. I'm not blaming it on Will Reichard, but when you leave 6 points on a board in a game that you're only up by 4, that would have been 10 points, a 2-possession game. Texas A&M on that goal line is not as stressful as a play on that final play as it was last Saturday when we were only up by 4. So that's why that is so important to me, why you can't leave Will Reichard out of the equation of why that game was that close. So moving into our next thing, because we gave kind of a review on Texas A&M, and I want to do a preview on Tennessee. First, I wanted to give you this. We talked a lot about Jalen Milroe.
Yeah.
What is your grade on Jalen Milroe of what he did? How much do you really penalize him for the things like you said? You feel like Bill O'Brien wasn't doing great either, but it was also Milroe part of it.
Right. Part of it himself. And as I was saying earlier, yes, I put a lot of the blame on Bill O'Brien, but at the end of the day, I still would put Jalen Milroe at a C minus, D plus, somewhere in that range for all the things I've already mentioned. I'm saying he played with a lot of anxiety, and then he really has to work on that passing accuracy. I'm saying it's because I don't right now at this point. I'm not saying what the future holds for Milroe, but at this point, based on what I saw in that particular game, I just don't see where he could become
a starting quarterback for Alabama at least.
Yeah, no. I don't see where he can become a starting quarterback. Of course, he can do it, with his legs, but at some point, he has to be able to throw the ball. He has to be able to read through progressions, and those are some of the things that I just didn't see from him in that particular game in terms of just passing accuracy, going through progressions. I just think the lights were too big for him in that particular game, and for God's sake, hold the ball, protect
I
the
don't know,
ball. I'm
like,
saying when you
dude.
do have to scramble, protect the ball. You can't hold that ball like a loaf of bread. So yeah, C minus, D plus.
You know your O-line is not the best if you're Jalen Milroe, that there are times where guys come off
Right.
the edge and there's open people. So for you to be running around with the ball like it's a magic wand, like that can't happen. Like that's like it literally looks like a big piece of cake to any defender. They're going to swat that. They're seeing that before they're even seeing you. So I promise you, the first place their hand is gonna go is right there. So, and then Jace McClellan also fumbled, but we didn't talk about that. That's a different turnover. But if I were giving Jalen Milroe a grade, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt because of what? Because of Bill O'Brien. Because of Bill O'Brien. And
so what would you give him? I'm saying
I'll give him a B minus, a C plus. You said C minus, D plus, but I'll give him a B minus, C plus. Right. It's a lot closer than I think it seems. But rather than give him a grade, this is what I want to do. I wanted to give him a comparison. For our SEC fans who have been watching or who have been watching college football for a long while now, Nick Marshall. He looks like Nick Marshall. He can run the ball a lot. The old quarterback from Auburn that brought them to the championship. The one for the play of destiny.
The bounce and
the bounce, and then that's the same year as the kick six and everything like that. Nick Marshall got bailed out a ton by just lucky plays. That was Auburn's year of destiny. They had a lot of things go right in games that they should have lost, honestly. So I compare him to that because Nick Marshall won. He was a runner, clear runner. Everyone saw that. He did not have the passing accuracy. He wasn't reading through defenses. He wasn't breaking down plays before the snap and everything like you see from some of the better quarterbacks in college football, from guys like Bryce Young, or even Stetson's able to make reads and break down plays to an extent and stuff like that. Nick Marshall just wasn't able to do that at the time. But he did have a big arm. He could launch the ball down the field 50, 60 yards and hit a DB. And I mean, not hit a DB, hit a receiver and give him a 50-50 chance. And they had a lot of big receivers back then that helped him out. But I think if you take a lot of those things away and you put Nick Marshall in the same type of situation as what Jalen Milroe's in right now, I think they would look very similar. So I think if you give a comparison, I would say Milroe looks a lot like what Nick Marshall did. Maybe not the year they won the championship, maybe a year before or so, but he looks very comparable to that, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'm saying I agree with you. There's definitely a comparison there, but I would still say that at this point in Jalen Milroe's career at Alabama, I would still say Nick Marshall definitely wasn't a passer, but I would still say that he was a little bit better.
You would choose Nick Marshall over Jalen Milroe.
Right. He was still a little bit better passer than Jalen Milroe from what I saw in the couple of games that he's been in. Yeah, I would still say that Nick Marshall was a little bit ahead of him in terms of passing ability. Not that Nick Marshall was a great passer at all.
I will agree with that. Right. And the thing that I think made the comparison good for me is not the fact that, because Nick Marshall is a little bit better passer. I agree with you on that. I think it's the fact that they both are smart enough to not make mistakes throwing wise. Like Jalen Milroe, he had accuracy problems, but it wasn't like he was throwing into double, triple coverage, other than like one or two plays where it looked like, okay, like where are you throwing to right now? Yeah. But majority of times he was throwing to receivers that were quote unquote open, but he was just missing.
He was missing him.
Yeah, exactly. Nick Marshall was the same way. He wasn't going to throw a pick. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's not going to throw away the game for you or throw it into a bad coverage or places that he can't fit it. But at the same time, he was making the throws when those guys were open. And that's the difference between Nick Marshall and Jalen Milroe. If I was choosing one, I would choose Nick Marshall right now.
I would have to choose Nick Marshall still, just based on what I saw from Nick Marshall and what I've seen from Jalen Milroe in the past game and a half.
Yeah.
Now that may change at some point as Milroe progresses through his career at Alabama or wherever else he may end up, at some point. Because I definitely think there'll be a quarterback competition next year.
And we talked about that after the game. Like you said, I don't know if Jalen Milroe can ever develop into the passer that we want him to be. He's further back than what we said. Nick Marshall, that means he's obviously further back than Jalen Hurts. He's further back than what we saw from Blake Sims. So if he's further back than all of those guys, he doesn't have any right to just have the starting job next year. Ty Simpson needs to be in that conversation when it hits springtime.
Ty Simpson, Eli Hogerstein, I think, all of those guys.
So, exactly. And all that being said, I sent you my notes before we started doing this, and I kind of reordered the questions. And the one thing you told me is that, can we put this question right after our Jalen Millro conversation? And I'm gonna go ahead and ask you, going into this Tennessee game, where I almost pre-did it too quick, but we're now doing the preview instead of the review now. And the question is there any situation you see Bama winning without Bryce Young?
Without Bryce Young?
Against Tennessee. Is there any situation that you see Alabama pulls it out with Jalen Milroe and no Bryce Young?
Now, okay, again, you know I'm an Alabama fan, so I want to say there is always hope, but I find it very hard to think that Alabama, based on what I saw Jalen Milroe do in that past game, and this being a different type of game, like they always say, styles make fights, right?
They do.
So Tennessee being a throwing team, I assume we're going to have to put some points up on the board.
Yeah, it's going to be.
And in order to do that, we can't do what we did in that Texas A&M game. I'm saying Jalen Milroe has to be able to throw the ball a little bit. I don't think we're going to be able just to hand the ball off to Jahmyr Gibbs and say, carry us on your back.
No, sir.
So with that being said, I just see it hard. There's always a chance. There's always a shot. Maybe our defense can, get to Hendon Hooker and shut down the offense a little bit, make them move a little bit slower, decrease the score, make it a low-scoring game. But if I'm honest with myself, without Bryce Young, I don't see it.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. I said this. I said this last week on the show when I did the Panic or Peace segment with Asa. We did a Panic or Peace on Jalen Milroe against Jalen Milroe for the possibility that he plays the next few games. Right. I said it was peace for Texas A&M. We saw how close that got. I should have said panic. Right. And then I right after that, I said, now if Milroe is the starter for that Tennessee game, absolute panic. No chance we win that game. I don't and I'm like, I'm not even going to sit here and be optimistic with you. There is absolutely not a single way that Alabama gets out of that game with the win with Jalen Milroe as their starting quarterback.
You don't think a miracle can happen between Texas A&M and Tennessee?
No. We know that's not happening.
Then Milroe comes out there and all of a sudden he's reading progressions and
dude. I would be absolutely ecstatic. I would sit here and what it would remind me of SEC championship against Georgia, Tua going down, and then Jalen Hurts coming in and taking it out for us.
But Jalen Hurts was better.
He had improved a lot at that point, because he had sat behind Tua almost that whole year, and then who was our quarterback coach at the time that they kept giving so much praise to? He had done so much better with him.
Oh yeah,
I forget who it was.
His name. Yeah, I can't remember his name.
He had helped a ton in progressing Jalen Hurts to be better enough to even be a draft pick of what he was, even out of Oklahoma and stuff like that. I don't think he gets to where he is without that. But we don't have that guy. We don't have him anymore.
We don't have him anymore.
We don't keep any of our coaches past 2 years except for Bill O'Brien and Pete Golding. And that should tell you something. So and that's part of the reason why there's no chance that Alabama wins this game with Jalen Milroe as their starter. Even and I would venture, like, we know turnovers were a big part of why Alabama had that game so close to Texas A&M. There's at least 2 or 3 turnovers that happened that gave Texas A&M great field position, where if you take those away, I said that honestly, I think A&M gets at max 6 points.
Yeah, that game shouldn't even been close. I'm saying there at certain points during the game, I was sitting there thinking we should be at least 3 touchdowns at this point if we were not killing ourselves with turnovers and penalties and that type of thing. But
and it's like at max, I think A&M has 6 points, and then Alabama has like 30 something. If that's the situation, even if you take those turnovers away against Tennessee, and Alabama doesn't turn the ball over a single time, Jalen Milroe doesn't fumble, doesn't throw an interception, he can't duel with Hendon Hooker. And Alabama doesn't have the offensive talent at receiver to be able to do the things they want to do and play with a team like Tennessee, even if he's not throwing interceptions. So I don't see any possible situation that this turns out the way we would want it to if Milroe comes out as the starter.
I definitely find it hard. Again, as a Bama fan, always have hope.
I'm gonna have hope. Yeah, I got hope, but like I don't have hope if it's Milroe. Like I'm gonna let y'all know right now.
But I definitely want to see Bryce walk out on that field, and I don't know. Even an 80% Bryce, I think, is better than Milroe in there.
You heard what I said. I was like a 60% Bryce. I'd like out there, but the only thing is, I mean, you don't want Bryce to play hurt. That's the only thing.
Don't want him to play hurt, and you don't want him to damage his future in any way.
Exactly.
You don't want him to risk anything that may affect his future prospects of being an NFL talent.
And then we talked about this a little bit, and I'll touch on this before we go into the next question. Is this is a big game, but in my honest opinion, I tweeted this out too. This is not the most important game for Bama. Due to the fact that Tennessee is in the SEC East, Alabama can lose this game and still make an SEC championship, which if they win the SEC championship, anyone who wins the SEC championship, unless it's just like everything goes wrong and the SEC championship winner has 2 losses, I mean, anyone who wins that game, you're in the playoff most likely. Like you're a shoo-in. Same with the Big Ten. Mm-hmm. So losing this game would not absolutely ruin Bama for making that SEC championship. Yeah. The more important games, Mississippi State, Ole Miss, in my opinion. So,
yeah, because they're in SEC West.
Exactly.
So, I definitely agree with you. I don't want to lose the game, but yes, I agree that if Bama loses this game, it's not detrimental at that point. Mm-hmm. We still have a chance. It's long, but now we don't have any more room for error if we lose that game because we want to make it to the SEC championship without 2 losses.
Yes.
But I feel as if we lose this game, we have to continue. We have to run the table after that. And then most likely from the East, you're probably going to be facing Georgia or Tennessee, most likely. Yep. And if you can somehow beat one of those teams in the SEC championship, I still think an Alabama with 1 loss goes to the playoffs.
I agree. And Alabama with 1 loss, especially to a tough team in Tennessee of what they look like this year, that's a team that still makes the playoffs, absolutely. Same way with Georgia. Mm-hmm. If they only lose to Tennessee, and even though they wouldn't make the SEC championship, let Tennessee lose that SEC championship, I think Georgia gets put in instead. So there's a lot of crazy situations that could potentially happen with how that goes and everything like that. But I wanted to say this before I ask you these questions. Tennessee has the 11th ranked rush defense. Mm-hmm. No way we win with Jalen Milroe as our starting quarterback. But 11th ranked. Alabama is 8th. So we're a little bit better. All right. But 11, no. We're not winning. They're only allowing 2 yards per rush right now. So I'll go straight into our next question. I'll ask you this one is, what are the 3 keys to winning or 3 keys to victory? And now I'll shout out to Jared Dink. He was the one who gave me this kind of idea. He didn't tell me about it, but this is something that we used to do whenever we were interviewing coaches before we went out and called games at Georgia Southern. He would always ask the coaches, what's your 3 keys to victory? And I thought that was a good one. What's your 3 keys to victory for Alabama winning against Tennessee?
Okay, yeah. Well, number 1, coming off of what we just talked about, Bryce.
Yeah.
Bryce has to be at the top of that list because just as for the reason we just discussed.
Oh, you're a 4.
Yeah, well, I kind of threw in an extra or whatever.
Okay, I'll let you do that honorable mention.
But Bryce definitely has to be the key. He's the number 1 key to Alabama winning this game. Without Bryce, it's tough for me to see it with Milroe being at the helm.
At the helm.
So yeah, Bryce number 1. The number 2 key to victory. Okay, we've talked a little bit about their quarterback and just their offense and that type of thing. So I think pass rush is going to be key. We have to get to Hendon Hooker. So Alabama employing that cheetah package, as they like to call it.
It worked very well.
Exactly.
It worked very well.
It worked excellent. So, with them bringing that into play, I expect that to be big in this game with a quarterback like Hendon Hooker. So you got to get Will in there, you got to get Braswell in there, and you got to get Dallas Turn all in there at the same time. So that pass
even Deontay Lawson was looking good in place of Jalen Moody in terms of pass rushing and coverage.
Well, he's fast.
Yeah,
he's faster than Jalen Moody. So, but from what I understand, Jalen Moody is probably going to be back in this game, right? So yeah, that pass rush is going to be key. And then I would say other part of defense is going to be key is just that secondary again. Statistically, we look decent, but just those key plays. And in a game like this, and a quarterback like Hendon Hooker, and then Tennessee, who runs kind of a spread you out type of offense, and then find the open holes, secondary is going to be key. And not only am I talking about the cornerbacks with Terrion Arnold and Kool-Aid McKinstry, but I'm talking about safety.
It's more the safeties than the cornerbacks, honestly.
Yeah, I would say Helms and Battle are going to be
even
key
Branch got
to
beat
this game.
sometimes.
Yeah, but Branch had a nice game.
He had a decent game against A&M.
He had a nice game in that game.
Oh, actually, yeah. It was Arkansas. He got beat
right in Arkansas. Yeah, but yeah, that's going to be the three keys there. And then honorable mention, I would say offensive line. Offensive line, if Bryce is in there or whoever's in there, they have to give him time to throw. Our offensive line to me is still a little bit inconsistent. Now, I like Seth McLaughlin playing center because he opens up that middle a little bit, and you saw that's who Jahmyr Gibbs is running behind most of the time. Yep. He's creating that seam for him to run through. But the offensive line has to be consistent. I've definitely seen improvement over the past couple of games, but I need more consistency. I need more consistency. Vanderbilt, they look good, but then you get to your Texas A&M game, and they were like up and down a little bit.
The other thing, they were shifting guys around. We saw Booker in there. We saw Booker taken out. We saw Ekiyor in there. Yeah. So it's like I want them to solidify the guys, and then and please let those guys be McLaughlin and Booker.
Yeah, I want to see Booker
those are the better offensive linemen, in my opinion, and yours too. So.
Yeah, I think the only reason Booker is not starting is just because he's a true freshman. Again, Alabama with that loyalty thing, they stick with the guy, even though the guy behind them seems to be playing better. So I think Seth McLaughlin and Tyler Booker in there, and they can only get better the more they're in the game and they gel around the guys who are around them and just solidify that whole offensive line.
And completely different conversation, but I think that loyalty thing, the transfer portal, I think that affected it a lot.
Yeah.
But
true.
So I'm agree with you on the pass rush, Bryce, and I will even say the offensive line. Now the secondary, I agree with you to an extent. Like we talked about this multiple times before. The secondary has to look good, but in this game, like we said, statistically, Alabama has a great pass defense. Number 12 pass defense in college football right now. Tennessee, on the other hand, they're 128 out of 131. So they're 3 from that last place spot. They're not doing great, which is why I don't think the secondary has to be perfect. I would love them to be perfect. I would absolutely love them. But if they play a game like they did against A&M, I won't be mad at them. Because like we said, it was really only that last drive that they had an issue, honestly. We saw Arnold getting mossed. The ball went straight through his hands. Like, I don't know what else.
That should have been a pick.
Yeah, he's in perfect position. Right. His hands are up. He couldn't have played that any better. Just squeeze the ball. Like, you would have had it right there. And then there was another play on that drive that Arnold got beat where it was like, dude. And Kool-Aid, I can't really remember a time Kool-Aid got beat in that A&M game. We saw him struggle more in the beginning of the season. He seems like he's kind of locked it down recently. But for me, it's not secondary. Once again, the middle of the defense. Henry Toe does not cover DeMarco. Helms does not cover him. Helms does not cover. Battle has been up and down. He should have left last year, and it probably would have looked better in terms of his draft stock. And Branch is pretty solid. I've seen him mess up a couple of times, but I'm not too worried about him. But that middle of the defense where Toe and Moody and Helms and Battle are, that's where it seems like all of the passing and rushing comes. So I'm more worried about that than the secondary as a whole. I feel like that intermediate, that 5 to 15 yard range in the middle between the hashes is just always open. I don't know what it is. And it just seems like there's nothing that any team can miss right there.
And like you said, that's open from Tora, Helms, and Battle.
Exactly. That's literally those guys straight up the middle. So I agree with you on everything else, though. So that was basically, I wanted to let you do the 3 keys to victory for Alabama. Right. I'm going to do the 3 keys to victory to Tennessee because I don't want to be too biased. We've done Bama for about 40 minutes now, so I'll give Tennessee a little shine, I guess. But Tennessee, their 3 keys to victory, what they have to do to win their games, because I've went back and I've watched the last few games, the games that I really like to watch, Pitt, Florida, and LSU. those 3 games showed me a lot. And I will say, I'm gonna give their keys to victory, and then I'm gonna do it. Number 1 is force Bama to pass, stop the run. So far in the last 2 games, Alabama has rushed for 350 yards alone, over 350 yards alone from just Jahmyr Gibbs.
That's just Jahmyr
Gibbs. And then when you add Jace McCullough and Jalen Milroe, you're looking at 500, close to 600 yards rushing from 2 games. So that's something that Tennessee cannot allow to happen. I do have trust in their guys up the middle. They have some pretty good defensive linemen, Bryson Eason, Roman Harrison, some big guys that we're not used to seeing Tennessee really get and as run stoppers. So, and like we said, they're the number 12 team or number 11 team in rush defense in college football right now. So I think rushing the ball is stopping the rush is the most important thing, number 1 for Tennessee, because of just how Alabama plays. And of course, I think they're going to be leaning on that if Bryce Young is not at 100% like we talked about. So number 1 is stop the run, force Alabama to pass. Number 2, I have them ordered weird, but number 2 is get to Bryce. If you're going to stop the run, the next thing you need to do, we just talked about it. Tennessee's pass defense is 128th out of 131 teams. Right. That is absolutely terrible. And that's what I talked about when I watched those Florida in that Pitt game. Those quarterbacks didn't have great numbers in terms of completion percentage and everything like that, but there was just big chunk plays. Guys are wide open down the field, 10, 15 yards, 20 yards down the field, that they can allow big chunk plays at a time, and these teams can kind of just like move down the field a lot faster than, a more methodical drive and stuff like that, and it allows for big plays in Tennessee to have closer games than what they would like. They were up big in that Florida game. Right. And then Anthony Richardson was able to make it close because they started playing conservative. Their DBs got a little tired near the end of the game being on the field so much, and they were able to just just chunk down the field, for lack of a better word. I can't think of anything else right now. They were just moving quick. And so that would be my second thing, is you have to get to Bryce Young. You can't allow those big passes. Your secondary is not the greatest. Your pass rush is pretty good, though. Byron Young, 3.5 sacks this season. Bryson Eason has been pretty good, 1 sack this season. They've had a couple other guys that have 1.5 sacks, stuff like that. So overall, that pass rush has to find a way to get to Bryce Young when 1, he's already injured. 2, you have to stop the run, so they're going to be passing. Right. Number 3, protect Hendon Hooker. And it goes back to what you have on your list. Your number 2 thing is pass rush. My number 3 thing is protect Hendon Hooker. And the only reason they're number 3 is because of what I said with getting to Bryce. I think that's a little bit more important. But Hendon Hooker, great quarterback. But if he gets rattled, if guys get in there and make him uncomfortable. Sorry about that. We had some technical difficulties. My recording cut out. I've been using this website, Riverside, to do most of my recordings. And lately has been kind of iffy. So if you guys have any suggestions on any type of, recording platforms or ways that I can record this podcast so that it doesn't do those things in the future, because this happened last episode too, that I'm going to upload today as well. And I don't know what else to do with it. I'm just going to have to look into that later. But I want to pick up where we left off talking about Tennessee's 3 keys to victories. I already said my first 2, which was stop Alabama's run. My second one was get to Bryce Young. My third one was protect Hendon Hooker. And I talked about a little bit why already. Hendon Hooker is a great quarterback, and he can get things done with not only his arms, but also his legs. But once again, like I said, I don't think out of any of the Tennessee games that you can go back and watch film, there's no game where you can see him consistently rattled, where it was just like every play he has to snap and worry about, okay, is the guy going to come off the right side? Is he coming from the left side? There hasn't been a game to me where he snaps the ball and he has that internal clock running of like, okay, I got to go, or else they're going to be on me. He's had a lot of games where he can sit back in that pocket, pass the way he wants to. When things do break down, which it usually takes a good bit, he's a great runner. He knows how to find the lanes. He makes his decisions quick. He throws the ball away when he needs to, and he makes good passes even on his 50-50 balls. He puts it in places that only his receiver can get it. So Hendon Hooker, we already know, Heisman caliber quarterback right now in terms of what he's able to do. I would say he's top probably 4 or 5 in that conversation, maybe top 3 at this point. you have to protect him if you're Tennessee. He is going to be your savior in winning this game against Alabama. He will probably be your savior in winning the game a month from now against Georgia. He has to be the guy that gets you out of those games. You have a lot of great players, but number one is Hendon Hooker. So
yeah, I definitely I agree with it. And you see that, with my keys to Bama winning and your keys to Tennessee winning, they kind of play off of each other, because I said Bryce is Bama's key. You said for Tennessee, they have to get to Bryce. Yeah. And with that, I'm thinking that, we don't know what Bryce is going to come in at. We don't know if Bryce is going to be 100%. We don't know if Bryce is going to be 80%. We're not even sure if Bryce is going to play. I kind of think he will.
I don't think they have a choice.
Exactly. But at the same time, we just don't know what percentage he'll be at. But you can bet your bottom dollar that Tennessee is probably going to, I don't want to say target Bryce's shoulder, but they're going to test that injury out to see where Bryce is with it.
And I think they can test that in two ways. Yes, the pass rush, but also shutting down all short passing situations.
Yeah.
Forcing Bryce to throw down the field.
Right.
So
exactly. And then the other thing you said, protect Hendon Hooker. And I said Alabama's key to winning is pass rush. So we're kind of playing off of each other with the keys, two of the keys at least being, opposite sides of the ball. Whoever wins those battles will probably likely win the game.
And it comes down to the battle that we all kind of thought it would be. Bryce Young versus Hendon Hooker. It's a quarterback battle. And I absolutely hate that Bryce Young is coming into this game only 2 weeks off of an injury that we don't know what he's going to look like. The only thing I can have faith in is, one, Nick Saban said he's had this injury before and he's got through it before, and we didn't know about that.
We didn't know at all.
Yeah, and Bryce Young still won a Heisman, and he still looked good up until that point when he got injured. So it's hard for us to say that, like, oh, yeah, Bryce being hurt is just, like, going to change his play, because we didn't know, but we have seen him hurt, and he played well. So that really scares me, but Hendon Hooker is really the biggest thing that scares me. If we can't stop him, this game's done for. And that means passing and rushing. So they're going to have a QB spy on him. They're going to have to figure out a way to make him throw in situations that he doesn't want to, throw a little bit early, maybe throw some balls that are more 50-50 than he would like and stuff like that. So, yeah, like you said, it comes down to the same thing we had playing off each other. Ultimately, what it boils down to, Bryce versus Hendon Hooker.
Quarterback.
Bryce versus Hendon Hooker. Absolutely. So, and then I didn't want to put you on the spot, but I'm going to do it.
Okay. All right.
Pick a winner.
Pick a winner?
Pick a winner. And you can be biased. You can go with your heart. You can absolutely do that. You can. I would not blame you. I have absolute full hope that.
And let me preface this by saying, assuming Bryce plays, right?
Assuming
Bryce plays, I'm still
in parentheses.
Yeah. I don't, because if Bryce doesn't play, I would have.
There's no point in choosing
to, right. I would have to pick Tennessee at that point.
Assuming Bryce plays, so I understand.
While still hoping that Bama pulls it out, but I would have to pick Tennessee. But if Bryce plays, I don't think it's going to be a game where one team runs away with the other.
No, it's going to be who has the ball last.
Exactly. It's going to be that type of game. So I think, whoever wins is going to win within a touchdown, right?
Yeah.
That's my guess. And I would say Bama pulls it out. Bama pulls it out within Bama 7, no more than 7.
Okay. And I'm going to look up the what Vegas has them at right here real quick. I think last time I saw it was no more than like 3 points or something like that.
They've gotten closer, right? I thought.
Actually, it is 7 points. So okay. Alabama is favored 7 points. The game is being played in Rocky Top at Neyland Stadium.
Yeah, that's tough too.
Yeah, so that's the part that really scares me the most. I don't know how Alabama is favored, quite honestly. Right now, Matchup Predictor has it 70% Bama, 30% Tennessee, which is also crazy to me. And I mean, I said this last week, right after the game was done. What did I tell you about Tennessee? You remember? I don't think we win with Bryce Young. I don't think we do. I remember I said that. I remember. You remember me saying that right after the A&M game. I was screaming it because I was so mad.
But you were upset about the whole team as a whole. But now you've had time to go back and look at stats and all that kind of good stuff. And that didn't change your mind at all?
No, it did not. The only thing that makes me feel a little bit better about Bama is the fact that, like we said, Tennessee's pass defense is 128th. Alabama's is in that top 10, or it was number 12. So that's the only thing that makes me feel good. But like we've said multiple times, we've seen the holes in Alabama's defense passing wise. There's been no team that can exploit that yet. The closest team you could say is maybe KJ Jefferson, but we saw what Quinn Ewers looked like in that Texas game before he got knocked out. He was ripping us apart in that secondary. And I think I know Hendon Hooker is better than Quinn Ewers as of right now, so I don't see that being any different. And I can't sit here and trust Pete Golding to prepare for this team any different because he hasn't seen any different yet. Is he actually watching film? I don't know. Is Bill O'Brien? I don't know. I can't trust either of those guys. And I think that's what it's going to come down to is that Alabama's not going to be prepared for this game in the passing game that Hendon Hooker has, and they're going to lose this game because Hendon Hooker is going to rip that defensive backfield to absolute shreds. So I
hope not, but yeah,
that's the thing that I have to give it to. I hope, and then also this number 2. I don't. Bryce Young's not fully healthy.
That's what makes me nervous.
Bryce Young not being fully healthy. I don't know if he can take advantage of the Tennessee passing defense being as bad as it is statistically. So at the end of it, I'm gonna say Tennessee. Close one again. I don't think it's nothing past 10 points. And even then, I'm going to say it's a 3-point game. If I'm choosing,
really tight,
if I'm choosing, I'm thinking
that's just home field advantage.
Yeah, 31-28 Tennessee. I think it's super, super close. So that's everything we have for Alabama, Tennessee, or Alabama review / preview, and then Tennessee and everything like that. I'll stop this recording, and then we'll be right back to do our rankings. And we're going to give that in kind of a different format, so you guys will see. Deuce.